El Segundo is the highest concentration of good founders in America. The fellas are just off and running.
Soren keeps winning. Zane keeps winning. These guys keep winning. So you have to win with them.
Getting all of us at one table is like maybe not the best idea. If the wrong thing happens at this table right here, like the United States is set back by 30 years at least.
It is essentially this table versus every great power adversary of the United States.
I'm here in El Segundo with Isaiah, Augustus, Ted, Cameron, Zane, and Soren to answer the question, what the fuck is happening in El Segundo?
I think there's a lot of things happening in El Segundo, particularly our favorite person in the world, Ty, who just like put all of the boys together in one room, which is extraordinarily hard to do.
I've never seen
very,
this.
very difficult to get this group of people all in one place at
Years
one time.
have gone by, actually.
I'm pretty. This might be like a giant op. Like getting all of us at one table is like maybe not the best idea, but we'll roll with it.
Well, it's a giant security risk.
Yes.
Rods from God, guys.
Listen, if the wrong thing happens at this table right here, like the United States is set back by 30 years at least. Like, it's not good.
1,000 years of darkness. Yeah. Yeah. Reindustrialization and boozing is happening in El Segundo.
True.
Cheers.
It's true.
L'Heim.
L'Heim. Boom.
You guys are going to cheers? Yeah.
Yeah, cheers.
Yeah, no, I think it's a group of patriots who have come together and just decided that we are going to save America, that it has come upon us and that we can actually do something about it. And many are heeding that call.
Yeah.
What's happening in El Segundo, Cameron?
Parts.
Parts?
Many parts.
It's true.
Metal is flowing through this city.
Let's go.
Yeah.
How much? Like tonnage wise?
Tonnage, we're probably sitting on like 3.5 tons now.
Nice.
Yeah. Not enough. 10x that.
I mean, takes a lot of that's a lot of parts though.
Yeah.
Like parts aren't measured in tonnage normally. So like
they're numbered in count.
yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of parts, lots of jet fuel still. City's still making jet fuel. More jet fuel than any other city I know.
Or 150 feet away from Norwell.
You have a list
Probably,
of all the cities making jet
there's
fuel.
probably more cities making a little bit more jet fuel, maybe.
El Trio. El Trio's just below us. I saw them flying to El Primero. They're number one.
Zane, what is happening in El Segundo?
Honestly, just a couple guys decided we were going to build real things again. And we did it, and people called bullshit, and now we're all actually building real things, and people kind of quieted down. And it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, we definitely haven't like made it yet though, but we're building stuff. Like many things are being built.
I think when people called our bluff, I think it was extremely fair. Like, the haters were right?
Yeah.
Like, we actually had not built anything.
Yeah. Well, you had been building
Yeah,
things
you
for a
actually
long time
were
actually.
unprofitable
Yeah.
business.
It's actually just you.
I want to appreciate Zane for like hopping into the like Gundo scene and pretending to be like somebody who was trying to bootstrap a company together with a few crazy guys, whereas in fact you were like running a profitable business that was currently deploying stuff into the field for the Department of Defense, and then just like allowing us to aura farm off of that a little bit. I appreciate that, Zane.
Happy to help.
We're catching up, though. We're catching
Yeah,
up.
we're catching up.
I think El Segundo is the highest concentration of good founders in America, which is very special. And I think what we alluded to at the beginning, where it's like we haven't done anything like this in a very long time, actually goes to show that. It's a little sad though, because I think back a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we were all kind of like pre-seed, had a little too much time on our hands, doing stuff every weekend. And now the fellas are just off and running.
Yeah.
Yeah, we managed to do the Gundo bonfires surprisingly often, like almost every week for a long time.
For a while, yeah.
And then all of our companies suddenly got extremely serious, and we had many employees to look after and funding rounds to raise and hundreds of drones to pump out every week.
Thousands.
Yeah, sorry, every week. How many week are we at? Can you say that?
A week?
Yeah.
Like 400.
Nice. Okay.
Well,
No,
Rainmaker's
sorry, more. I can't keep track. Lots.
Lots.
Well, Rainmaker's doing 6 per week.
6 drones.
Watch out, Soren.
They're bigger, so there's some multiple we gotta.
Can your drones fly through icing, Soren?
You tell me. You tried.
No, they can't.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Although they can fly surprisingly well in RF and GPS denied environments.
that is true. We
Yeah.
worked on that one a little bit.
Why?
No reason.
In case it happened to be useful someday. We're making 1/40th of a reactor per week.
Whoa!
So
That's pretty good.
we can make a reactor in 10 months. We hope to get that down significantly. 400 a week. I'll try and match that in nuclear reactors. We'll see.
When I initially reached out, it was like December 30th, 2023. And that was when I initially reached out after the John Coogan video dropped. And it was really like, I think the party bus hadn't even happened yet. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
The party bus.
I don't think the party bus
Iconic.
had yet.
Canon
Yeah.
moment.
What is kind of like shifted the most from like those early days to now?
Oh, I mean, well, Soren touched on it, right? Like,
Yeah.
we were a bunch of goons that like had very aspirational, visionary ideas about what the future should look like and about the ways that we wanted to instantiate them, right? Like, we had particular notions about, be it casting or defense or energy or critical minerals or water, that we wanted to see out in the world. But if you have a team of 3, right, if not less, then there's only so much to be done any given day until you get some traction. The difference now is that like everybody's deploying product out in the field in some capacity. Actually, that's an interesting particularity of these companies in that for the most part, and even to some extent with Rangeview, right? Like everybody's companies forward deploys them, right? Like you guys have been public about the Philippine stuff, right? Like you had to go to the edge of the world to get like the first regulatory approval. Now you're going to Utah as well to turn on a reactor. Shout out Utah. Love the DNR there. Love Director Joel Ferry. Love Governor Spencer Cox.
So true. Spencer Cox is a huge G. Thank you, Robert.
Yeah,
Thank you,
but then
everybody.
like, but then like Teddy, you're off mining in Nevada.
Middle of nowhere, Nevada,
middle of
and
nowhere.
soon Arizona.
Soren, you're somewhere. And then can you talk about it? Do you talk about that?
I mean, we got a lot of drones going to Ukraine, and then
Okay,
a
yeah.
lot of drones going to other places that I can't be as specific about.
Yeah. And then I mean, Zane, you're off in the world. And then Cameron, you have to go see foundries all over the place. It's-
We're just here.
you're just here.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
Cameron doesn't leave. We actually don't let him out of Gundo.
Someone has to tend to the flame. Yeah.
If we let Cam leave Gundo, the parts just stop. There's just no more parts being made. And we can't let that happen. So
We need parts.
It's true. It's true. So I think that's like the most palpable difference. Well, that's one, like this initial founding cohort actually runs like real businesses making real money now with large teams. But then the second thing too is like it hasn't been a flash in the pan. Like it hasn't totally dissipated. But the fact that there is like an influx continuously of new companies and new founders, and I'm sure that like it will be hard to maintain the highest quality of founder and company as more people come. But like the fact that it is continuing to, and that El Segundo has become somewhat institutionalized, and the fact that like government agencies now have written into their policy briefs El Segundo as like a point of reference, that's pretty new.
Yeah. And you're not always going to get good quality. I mean, look at San Francisco.
Oh, yeah, those guys stink.
So I will say one interesting thing though, like you're right, we were just like a bunch of goons that were like hanging out and going to the beach on Friday nights and also trying to hire serious teams and raise money and do all the right things. But it's actually kind of shocking to me like how pretty much all of us were right, like in our central theses. And that was pretty obvious to me because every single person in the group was so fiery about their thesis. And that's not always one-to-one. Like sometimes somebody's very passionate and also very wrong. But everyone had so much skin in the game, like they had to be right. If they weren't right, they were just too in it to be wrong. I don't know everything about all of your businesses, but I can talk to you about them for like 2 hours and you can go so deep on it that I know that you have lost more hours of sleep than anybody else on it. And we were all like pretty fundamentally right about our theses. And so now the companies are growing, and that doesn't mean you don't make strategy changes and like you constantly make strategy changes to get the exact right, fit in the market. But what we all set out to do, we are now doing. And that's incredibly unique. Like for 10 people to come together and then generally be right about their businesses. Very unique.
I'd be curious. Has the ambition level changed at all in the last 16 months?
It's gone up.
Yeah, increase.
How has that changed?
I mean,
Like, what does
Soren
that mean?
keeps winning. Zane keeps winning.
Cam
These
keeps
guys
winning.
keep winning. So you have to win with them. You can't, there's that real sense of competition, right? When people around you are winning and they're not winning on meaningless things. It was easy for me to dismiss crypto wins, because it's just not what I cared about in the world. But nuclear reactors going together, like, like there's a real level of seriousness that hits you when your brothers are building your country. Your brothers are building for your country faster than you feel like you are. And that's so special. I think the difference is that feeling used to happen directly. Like we would go to events and talk to each other about our success. And now it's so, there are teams behind everybody here, with everybody here. And you see it out in the world. I've seen products from the folks at this table, like while I was at home just scrolling, in the Wall Street Journal, like, oh my goodness, I gotta keep up. So it's nuts,
Finding out about the fella's progress from like the Wall Street Journal is definitely pretty cool. Like you could have put it in the group chat, Soren. Come on in.
I'm so sorry.
So you have to move faster. And that moves everybody in this neighborhood faster. But it's a real lesson for the country. This is what the country needs to feel like, right? Like we are the people at this table are working extremely hard to make this country what it needs to be for the next generation of Americans and for America as a whole. But it's going to take millions of people, tens of millions of people. It's going to take a real spirit, and you feel that when you see the success of people that are just down the street from you. You can walk into the buildings and see what it feels like. And that's a real product. And I hope that's something that we can export. I think it's really important that the country feels what we feel in this tiny neighborhood.
Yeah, guys, do you think that like Gundoism spreads to other places and you have like
Austin?
You have like, not Austin. Nah, it's not going to be that. I'm just kidding.
But you're not like
Just
Austin?
kidding.
We like
Yeah, there's a little bit of competition. But no, like
There it is.
I saw last week someone was talking about Austin is the new Gundo.
yeah, like
And that
people are trying to meme this
Oh,
on Twitter right now. They're trying to
Well, yeah,
they're
and
trying
I
to
mean-
meme that like Austin's the new. So like, is that what's going to happen? Are they going to be like Gundo's here and like Gundo's there?
The truth is, I don't think it really matters, right? I think the like what the energy and the drive that a small group of guys who literally just met on Twitter kind of brought out into the world is indicative of what I hope to be something that touches the entire country and is not limited to this tiny little spit of land in LA. I think this will continue to be the beating heart of the defense and hard tech ecosystem. But for us to actually win, we cannot be limited to a tiny little slit of land along the Pacific. This has to be a countrywide effort. And I am very, I guess, encouraged by the fact that it seems like there's a generation of Americans across the country who are excited about this. Yesterday, I met this kid who just graduated with a philosophy degree. He's an exceptional painter, and we met in some forum online where he was talking about how he just started an electrical engineering degree because he really wants to move into defense. I mean, I come from a computer science background because that was the thing to do, right? You go to computer science and you go into software because real hard things don't happen anymore. And to see someone specifically go into electrical engineering because they want to build the next weapon systems for the United States, that is a real fundamental structural change that's hard to quantify, but definitely happening. And that's, I think, what El Segundo has radiated to the world. But it's happening across the country.
We definitely should be taking it as a compliment if Austin is saying it's the new El Segundo.
Yeah, it's not the new LA. It's the new.
It's the new El Segundo, 5 square miles.
Well, it's 5 square miles. It's 2 of not refinery.
Exactly. So I think that actually just goes to show like what is happening here. that a city like Austin is getting that brand behind El Segundo. And I love the competition with other places, and we have the beef going with SF, have for a while, but at the end of the day, what actually matters is that like more people are building meaningful things all over.
Well,
so
and to that point, Soren, and I would love for more people to build meaningful things up in SF and otherwise. But there's still people. Do you ever think about the fact that there are still people running crypto companies, like
Yeah.
anywhere in the world, SF or otherwise? Like, I think the reason why I bring that up is I think that as important as it is to inspire and like help work with and excite the next generation and people all over the world that, or all over the United States. I don't really care about the rest of the world as much. Like.
Peace.
Wearing the
I-
CCP shirt.
I do. No, not CCP.
I like Ukraine.
CCCP.
And as important as that is, I think simultaneously, right? Like the valorization, the lionization of securing the bag simply for the bag's sake, going after crypto money or selling a course or otherwise, like that not only is something that is less honorable and materially consequential than building like hardware and deep tech, but it's actually like dishonorable. Like our civilization is dying. Birth rates are collapsing. The economy is largely this fake financial instrument on top of what little hard assets we still have. Like rates of depression and suicide are higher than they ever have been. Drug addiction is higher than it ever has been. Families that do exist are collapsing everywhere with or without children. And it's for a variety of reasons, but in no small part, I think that's because people's work and life has been devoid of meaning and consequence, right? And as long as we do get giddy and excited about like rug pulling people for $4 million that you're gonna go blow on like a car and online casinos, like we're going to see these issues persist, and we should actually publicly shame those that participate in that. And it's not to say like I disrespect people that have made money, right? There's some inherent skill and subsequently some inherent competence and some inherent virtue in that, but like if you're competent enough to make money in crypto, why wouldn't you just go do that in the material world where it will actually benefit others instead of be purely extractive? So,
And I would actually ask people to think bigger, right? Like there are massive bags to make in the actual physical world, right? We're not saying like don't go chase the bag, only do this thing that's sort of like the humbler path to serve your country, although I think that's noble. It's also like, listen, the biggest companies in the world do things in the real world, right? Like the largest privately held company in the world, the most valuable privately held company in the world is SpaceX, right? That is actually launching, I think they just landed their 400th booster out at sea. Like
Their first one for the 30th time.
they
happened
flew a
yesterday.
booster 30 times. Like if you talk to ex-SpaceX people, like I think the thing that's most like abundantly clear talk to them is that those were the most intense and the most meaningful years of their life, right? Like building something that was like intensely meaningful that they will always have, that they worked on the Falcon 9 booster for those 10 years that they were able to like cut it, right? And like eventually the intensity is too much, but the meaning stays for your entire life. And again, that's the most valuable private company in the United States. So there's not actually a trade-off here. Like the bags are enormous. I think Valor will be a $1 trillion company, and every single one of us will be extremely glad that we built it because it was meaningful in the world, and we were able to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. because we made energy cheaper, and we made abundant energy for our countrymen. So there's no trade-off. Like
and abundant water.
and abundant. Well, you can work on the water. I'll work on the energy. Both of us, I think, will build enormously valuable companies. So there's no trade-off. Like make the bag and do the meaningful thing as well.
Who's doing Earth and who's doing fire?
Well, Teddy's
guess
got
Teddy?
Earth.
Call
Teddy's
it.
currently got Earth.
So who's
I mean,
Who's doing
Nero's just
fire?
got some
Probably
fire.
fire, yeah.
What do you guys think the actual like functional limit? I really want more people to be working on this kind of company and this kind of future. What do you think the main limit or reason that more people don't go into this is?
I think for a generation, it was seen as dishonorable to go and work in the real world. The U.S. prided itself for a generation on being a services economy. We no longer build things. We've decided that is for the other countries around the world to go build things, and instead we will do the services. We will move other people's money around. We will build the software. At the end of the day, the real atoms are built by somebody else. And that has shifted, and I think there's a number of reasons why. but it shifted because we realized that it is still incredibly valuable to own the atoms, all the way from the raw materials pulled out of the ground, all the way to the finished product and beyond. And that has inherent value that is hard to capture without owning that entire chain. And so one of the theses behind El Segundo and the broader movement that has been started here is making that an honorable thing to do again. And I think it's worked incredibly well. And we've tapped into, right, it's truly not just a couple people kind of yelling about this on Twitter, right? It's tapping into a broader desire that we see across the country, right? Young kids in their homes are looking on what they want to do with their life. And do they want to go work as a software engineer at some big tech company where their greatest potential impact is adding 1% to the bottom line of a Fortune 500? That is the upper bound of where they can go. Is that a truly inspirational story? Or is the story they can build the next generation of rockets or energy or water or parts or whatever the industry is, right? These are just truly massive industries. When you look at them on net, are just dwarf the entire software industry, right? It makes the software industry look like a joke. And in the next generation, that is something that we will see happen, is we will look at the software industry, which sure, there's plenty of money to be made there. And if you want to go make it, great, go have fun, right? But the real money is not to be made there. The real money is to be made by owning the atoms and doing so across all of these industries that have been around for a long time and are absolutely ripe for us to go in and change the fundamentals of the industry and rebuild things from the ground up and bring real things back to the US in a way we haven't had in a generation.
Yeah, and America bet on that, right? Like I saw some statistic that, while America was actively divesting because they believed that actually all the value in the world was designing things and they're abstracting away to software. And now we're on the nth abstraction. You can use software to finance your payments for a digital service, to get Atom or to get more bits, right? It's, for your CS:GO gun skin. Right? We're so deep in that.
Wait a minute. Hey, let's not hate on the CS:GO skin for Come on.
Yeah, good
That's
point.
sacred. Don't bring that into this.
And then on the flip side, not the CCCP, but the CCP focused on the other side, which was deepening ties. And you look at the percentage of GDP. I don't know if you've seen this number, but the percentage of GDP that's gone into directly subsidizing, doing dumping, doing, votes of confidence towards the importance of atoms. This has happened overseas. And, China puts more money into directly subsidizing manufacturing than, most of these Western countries combined. It's a ridiculous difference, right? There's a different investment thesis. And I think we're actually starting to see that play out. And I think we're starting to see it play out in a way maybe that the West isn't comfortable with yet. I spent a good amount of my early childhood in China, and I was, it makes people uncomfortable for me to say this, but I was really impressed with a lot of the stuff that I saw over there. I don't think the average American feels that way. I think they've been kind of separated from just how remarkable. Go on YouTube and look up Shenzhen at night. All the buildings are giant LCD screens. It is for some a utopia. There are many reasons I learned later in life as to why I fly the American flag so high. But it's a different investment, and I think we're seeing a different payout. And I think it's going to be a real issue. I mean, what this group represents is something that is going to become increasingly in vogue as we start to see more supply chain shutoffs, as we start to see more of that geopolitical power flipped, because the investment, I think, was so wise by overseas countries. So it'll definitely change over time, and maybe we'll look at this in a few years, and what we believe will either be very obvious, people will say, wow, of course it's always been the way, or it'll go the other way. But we feel very strongly about this for sure, and it feels like a real honest life. I will say that. To your comment about crypto, when you go home at night, are you happy with what you did? And that's so important because the vast majority of your life is your career.
Well, but on that point is, yes, agreed. extraordinarily meaningful. Like, my head never hits the pillow without deep satisfaction. Sometimes, like considerations about the company, of course, but like on a previous point that you made on great power competition, right? It's really funny that this table, we were joking, I think, before you started recording, Ty, that like it's a grave security liability that we're all right here. Because with respect to FPV drones and drones writ large, and then defense, right? Like, it's essentially that end of the table versus the Russian Federation and China, right? And then on part manufacturing, right? On like casting, China makes way more parts, and like Rangeview essentially is all of that, which, and it's not to say there aren't other foundries and drone companies, but like the most innovative, the most productive, the most forward thinking, it's essentially encapsulated in Rangeview. Like, China is just dumping at loss critical minerals into the world economy, and we are beholden to them still, and that's what Teddy and Dern are working
And then
on.
refusing to sell it to us.
Yeah, and then
after dropping the price. We
Yep.
can't compete.
Yep, exactly. And then on weather modification, right? Like, they invest $1.4 billion a year in their cloud seeding program. And every time I go abroad and we're competing with the Beijing Weather Mod office on bids, like, there's a stack of bids this high, and then it's Rainmaker Technology Corporation representing the US. And then China and Russia, even like the UAE, they're turning on nuclear reactors. And the US has built like what, 2 in the last 50 years?
We built, 2 new nuclear sites in the last 50 years. China has 30 nuclear reactors under construction right now.
Yeah, so it's essentially, it is kind of, and listen, I would bet on this table 100 times out of 100 still, but it is essentially this table versus every great power adversary of the United States.
To clarify that, like, we are, I don't think you feel this way. I don't think any of us do. Correct me if I'm wrong. But not to say that we represent a direct one-to-one against those components. Like, they're all, many companies inside of all of our industries, which represent the vast majority of impact that's happening inside of the country in those areas. But what is critical is a new take, and I think what you're saying that I hear is that this table represents that new take, and that new take is necessary because the next decade relies on that take.
Yep.
And so it's not like I make all of the castings in America or you make all of the water from the sky in America, but it's to say that those things are absolutely critical for our future, and that's the security.
I think
component.
the overarching kind of point there is, it's something like these are problem areas that are large enough, deep enough, and impactful enough that it is something that young men and women across the country can and should spend their life diving super deep into any one of these. Take your pick. And there's the representation of this table does not even come close to covering the swath of these areas that need real talented talent from across the country to move into, right? But these are areas that are not just valuable, but they're honorable to move into, because it's the impact will be measured far beyond just the financials of whatever company it is. And we certainly hope to capture a good portion of that value. But any good company will multiply that value by way more than 10x. And that is something that is far, far, far more honorable than releasing the next token or writing the next SaaS application for some business, right? There's plenty of money to be made there. But
it's far more defensible, right? Like,
oh yeah,
someone else can build a clone of your software product with like vibe code or whatever, whereas like they cannot, at the drop of a hat, put 50,000 drones on the front lines.
Man, I hope not.
Yeah,
I would torch the entire business model.
But I do wonder, like, at this table, how many people have we relocated to come work on these things? Because when I think about our recruiting pipeline, we have a significant number of conversations, like probably an outsized percentage number of conversations of people who don't live in the area already, even though LA is probably the best place in the world to recruit for what we're doing. But it's people who see what's going on in El Segundo. And I think even potentially more than Neros, like a lot of the companies at this table have been very vocal about what is happening and been a very, very strong force to pull people here. But it's because of the problems that are being worked on and how meaningful they are. So I'm actually curious, like across this table, what percentage of hires or how many people we've pulled from other places because they want to come work on this and that's so exciting to them.
That's actually a great point. I mean, probably about a third of my team has moved in from elsewhere across the country.
Yeah, a third of my team too.
About a third.
It's probably like 2/3.
Really.
Yeah. Lay out a lot of the atmospheric science talent and otherwise has been from far away. A lot of people have come from Austin.
Yeah, we're probably about half and half. And yeah, I mean, people have uprooted their entire lives to come and work on the mission. And that's honestly one of the most like sobering and also rewarding things is to see somebody like pick up and join the mission and then see the fruit of that mission happen in front of their eyes. And it is the best feeling in the world to stand there with the team in front of the nuclear reactor and be like, yeah, we got together and we decided that this was going to go from a piece of paper, a sketch on the floor, to a system holding 3 megapascal of pressure operating at 1400 degrees Celsius. And we're going to do that in 6 months. And we did it. There's almost no better feeling in the world. It's incredible to work on.
And people loving their jobs. Like
Yes.
for me,
Yeah.
the satisfaction of walking around the factory and seeing people who love their job, that is hard to beat. That's incredible.
Walking around the factory and seeing people at 8, 9, 10 p.m. loving their job.
Yep.
The way I've been thinking about this like recently is basically people, the reason why you have to pay like software guys and SF so much is probably because the missions don't matter in a meaningful way. And so if you basically think of like salary as like an IV drip of, some drug, if something that you're waking up in the morning for doesn't matter, you just don't care.
Well, it's not only that it doesn't matter, it's Kafka-esque, right? Like you're sitting at a desk, you are essentially like becoming a bug person, hunched over said desk, clicking away on a keyboard. No disrespect for your time in software, Zane. And Isaiah, actually. But like, to speak on the tangible work, like if you're pouring a casting or if you're forward deployed, right? Like maybe this is a little bit particular to 1, 2, 3, 4 companies, but like, rainmakers literally live on top of mountains for months and are flying drones in snowstorms. It's a very adventurous, material grounding, grass touching life,
Oh, long commute in the desert, but I like it's tangible and measurable.
I dig the grass.
Yeah, mine sucks. It's hot.
It does.
Very dusty,
but
too.
I think that's
Dusty.
being in the field when you're drilling. It is measurable. How deep are we, and how quickly does it take, and then how much does that cost us? It is a simple business to run, and so much tech behind it. But I think that's similar to a lot of us. How cheap can you produce parts, and how quickly? That's what's cool about hardware. We're not inventing something crazy new process. We are doing something astronomically lower than how it is done today and lower than China can do it.
Boo.
Did Isaiah just
Oh no,
leave?
That's
is he
the
going back to
Hawthorne guy, by the way.
Hawthorne?
All right,
Going
he's
back to
going back to
Hawthorne.
Hawthorne. Yeah, he's not a real Segundo company. He's in Hawthorne. You ever think about that?
This is the point of the program
Irish
where
goodbye too.
the people that are in El Segundo stay.
Wow.
We can be honest now, guys.
We're starting the pod now.
Yeah, we can start now.
Oh.
This is Augustus at 10.
So what the fuck's happening in El Segundo?
I don't know any nuclear companies in El Segundo.
No, there's one.
There is one. Yeah.
Radiant.
Yeah. So true.
I think many people have tried to like start communities in the past of like new startup communities, and from my view, they just none of them work.
Yeah.
Even in Austin, there's a few people, but it doesn't feel like they really love each other.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know each other. They don't go to bonfires together. What did you guys get right? And then how is that like exportable? Like how can we actually replicate that?
I would credit it to our Discord server.
You had a Discord
Yeah, I
server?
think it's the Discord
no,
server.
no, I'm just joking.
I mean,
it's just-
authenticity, right?
Yeah, I think it's the
Like-
city. Like, it's this place. Like, this place isn't manufactured. This place. Look back in time. Like, this was it. We haven't built anything new. We merely revived something that was. Like this, even the land that we're sitting on right now is a significant part of not only the aerospace industry's history, but this country's history. Like the space shuttle happened inside of this facility. They did the solid rocket booster testing here. And you can't fake, like there's a feeling, there's a real feeling that you don't have to say anything, you don't have to attract anybody. It's just what it is. And the city has been that at its core. And I think we've just brought that to light.
Yeah, I mean, and I agree, right? Like the history, the vibe, like the material benefits of being around all of these machine shops, like that is a real pull. To be honest, like I came here because of you and Zane. Like that's why I came here. And yeah, you said like a bunch of things about how the city has all these benefits, and like you had your spreadsheet and did your analysis of like the best place to start a hardware company in the US. But I was sold on like the vision that you two guys had.
Aw. Thanks, Augustus.
Friendship.
Same.
Yeah, we almost did.
Back when I checked LinkedIn, it was seeing Cameron's post that he moved into El Segundo. It's like, it seems like an interesting place. I'll go check it out.
Soren cold DM'd me on LinkedIn.
I did.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
How did we get
Most
connected
successful
for
cold
KBBQ?
Colin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of like a weird coincidence. Think back at it.
That's got to be the most successful cold LinkedIn DM
Except
of
you
all
didn't
time.
respond, so not successful at all.
Well, that's because it was on LinkedIn, Soren.
Yeah. No, full. That makes sense. I wouldn't
that was your
respond now.
And I met Augustus through our good pal Phil.
Phil Ehrenstein, founder of Dirac, automated
The
work
assembly
instructions,
company.
the assembly
The
company.
factory company.
Recently closing a new big client in Southern California.
I heard an upstart defense company.
I have no further details on said engagement, but congrats to Phil Ehrenstein. We miss you. I'm sorry that whatever is keeping you in New York is keeping you in New York.
This feels like a TBPN ad.
Siren call.
Should really come
You know,
to
we're
El
actually a
Segundo.
Dirac customer.
Are you really?
Yeah. Assembly
What's your
instructions.
ROI on
Bella's
that
economy.
investment?
Hey, stop it.
Real. Well, I mean, we probably have to have one less technician than we do right now. So we're probably saving roughly. We actually pay $50 million a year for our Dirac seats. So it's really great ROI relative to having more technicians.
Does anyone have to go to the bathroom?
All right, we're losing daylight. Come on.
You were briefly mentioning that you guys, off camera, that you guys kind of run your companies in very different ways. What is the most like horrible thing that's gone wrong in the last like 18 months? Individually. Augustus, go.
Yeah, one of them I'm going to have to talk about a little bit tacitly. Well, we talked about the first one. I got microscopic arachnids in my eyeballs. That was bad because I wasn't sleeping at all and I was very stressed out. And so they started to infest my eyes. That was probably personally the worst thing. Corporately, I mean, we've been crushing for sure, but I told you we had to move up to Pendleton, Oregon because we didn't have a waiver to fly in the Central Valley of California. The only place with deregulated airspace that we could get access to quickly enough was Pendleton. I think maybe that was like the beginning of when we really stopped hanging out. Like maybe it was a bit before that, but
Yeah.
when I and my whole team moved to another state for 6 months,
Yep.
and
That
lived,
would contribute slightly. Yeah.
yeah, and lived out of a cold warehouse, and then also periodically a mountain base in the Middle East.
That's a
now and then.
KPI.
Yeah, it was pretty sweet, but that was a pretty harrowing point in time. Any other like disastrous, awful things that have occurred?
I feel like there's something.
Oh, do you mean like the not immediately recent but thing a month ago?
Was it
that
Austin?
happened? Is that what you're alluding to?
You being accused of causing floods that
yeah,
killed.
I thought that's what you were asking about.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah. That was
What the fuck?
that
man?
was sorry. It's been so long.
Did you do that?
No. Please don't joke about that on this. So, okay. So, I mean, for context, for those that haven't heard, I assume that most people watching this is like a tech-inclined audience that does know. The long story short is that we at Rainmaker conduct cloud seeding operations in Texas for farmers, both to provide water to them in events that they don't have water for irrigation any longer or to recharge their aquifers. And on July 2nd, we conducted an operation. We dispersed about 70 grams of silver iodide into 2 clouds, both of which precipitated and dispersed over the course of the ensuing 2 hours. And then on July 4th, of course, there were floods in Texas that came as a consequence of the convergence of the remnants of Tropical Storm Barry and the system from the Pacific. So it dumped over 1 trillion gallons of water over that area in Texas. And cloud seeding largely is not known, right? And so people put 2 and 2 together and got 5, and said, well, they're doing weather modification in Texas. Rainmaker is. There was this flood. Who's to say that they're not to blame for that flood? So
Put it in context, like how much water cumulatively across every operation has Rainmaker ever generated?
The most that any single cloud seeding operation has ever produced is 10 million gallons. The most we produced, or the amount we produced for Utah this past year was on the order of like 300 million gallons.
So there's a few orders of magnitude in
well,
between
but that
those
was
two
over
numbers.
the course of 8 months,
Exactly.
right? So we had to do a lot of PR. We went on a couple shows. We did a little bit of tweeting just to communicate to people what cloud seeding was, what it could do, what it couldn't do, that we had no association whatsoever with that flood. I suppose, yeah, that was
pretty bad, man.
Yeah, I
That was a lot.
empathize with that.
yeah, that was
I don't have to deal with that.
yeah. Well,
I was
it's
on Twitter. I go on your replies and I just see photos of the sky
yeah.
and the like white lines from the contrails.
For what it's worth, at the peak of that, around like July 8th, we got 100 to 200 emails per day on our contact email with pictures of contrails. We now get no more than 2 per day. So I think that the vast majority of people have since who have encountered this information realized that cloud seeding had nothing to do with those floods, that it couldn't have affected those floods whatsoever, and that it's a useful and measured tool for increasing water supply across the drought-stricken West and the rest of the world where water scarcity is something of concern. So that was quite a cycle for sure. There's some people in Congress that are still talking about that, but for the most part, I think we're over the hump there. I forgot about that, Zane. Sorry. Blacked out for that period of
I
time.
feel like everyone at this table is going to have a hard time competing with Augustus on the kind of extremes, like peak.
Yeah, my company was not almost outlawed by the federal government. So,
For what it's worth, we've been outlawed by 2 states. We've been outlawed by 2 states.
I can't even compete with
crazy.
that one.
I
Yeah.
can sell parts in every state.
Yeah, I've got 48 in the domestic market. There were only 32 that proposed bans this past congressional session.
Wow.
Yeah. So that is definitely a complicating factor at
So what you
Rainmaker.
do must be very dangerous then, right?
It's not. It's not as much as hustle bitch, prolific rage bait poster on Twitter would have you believe. No, I mean, we can produce tens to hundreds of acre feet of additional precipitation in any given operation. The materials that we use, it's about 50 to 100 grams per operation, dispersed over hundreds of thousands of acres. The concentrations of silver iodide, the material that we use found in the soil after years of previous operation, is in the parts per trillion, so about 1 million times less than that which is naturally occurring. So both, with respect to pollution, with respect to potential flooding or avalanche risk, we're well within bounds on safety as per the dictates. Sorry to give you the whole thing, but per the regulation in all of the states in which we operate, either from the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation or the Utah Department of Natural Resources or Oregon Department of Agriculture, it's a very safe, measured technology. Frankly, if we could produce 1 trillion gallons of precipitation over the course of a day, like New Mexico and Arizona wouldn't look that way anymore. They'd be green. But we haven't figured out that yet. I don't know if it's physically possible. So I guess, yeah, that was probably the peak bad thing that happened.
What about you, Ted?
Yeah. I think like the Rainmaker Pendleton campaign last year, I think we had a somewhat analogous experience in Nevada over the summer. We were in northern Nevada, staying in a town called Winnemucca, a couple hours northeast of Reno. That's a 2-hour drive, driving aggressively. And then our test site was another hour and 15 minutes, a portion of which you would not want to take most 4-wheel drive vehicles on. And so that's not ideal for testing some cutting edge hardware. We were drilling at an actual gold exploration site for a client, and so it was valuable data and I think a good real-life test, but that's not ideal for testing hardware. And so we are now kind of finding a facility in Tucson to do our field operations out of, with a backyard that we can drill in. There's one thing you can't do in El Segundo, and that is drill a 5,000-foot hole that's representative of a copper or gold mine.
Not with that
Did
attitude.
you ask the mayor? He's pretty chill.
I probably should. I haven't yet.
There's a hole right there. May be mercury in the ground here, but
We'll
you could
text them.
try
If we
here.
could borrow some of this. Are you using all of this?
Not down.
Okay, good. We need about 40 by 40 square feet.
You know what another thing is that you can't do in El Segundo? Because of LAX airspace, you can't do high altitude drone flights.
Can't really do any drone flights
Yeah.
indoors.
Yeah. Okay. Problems.
So
Problems.
Everything's just going really swell for range view.
Really swell.
No, okay. Yeah, well, so at Rangeview, I mean, the biggest problem is that we can't get elements. Like, to make parts, we need metal. Like, we actually just shape metal that, like, we just shape metal. We go from ingot-looking metal to more part-looking metal. And so you need the metal. But the problem is the metal isn't American. I mean, lots of it is, but lots of it isn't, because others have thought it matters a lot more than America, and so they invested a lot more. And so it's like a fight. It's a fight to get crates of ingot.
What metal specifically?
Yeah, wait, hold on. I want to press Cam on this a little bit, because the question was, what is the most disastrous thing that's happened to your company in the last 18 months? And you're describing a fundamental issue in the country. You're not describing a problem, like a disaster at Rangeview specifically.
No, it's a disaster because we can't make parts. The lead time for parts, like, we came into the industry and average people take like 10 to 14 months to make parts. And a stupid amount of that is actually just getting this stuff. Like, we promised customers that we would make parts in, 2 to 4 weeks, which is how long it takes us to make parts. We didn't take so we had like many orders out to customers, critical components, and we just blew past on-time delivery, like atrocious on-time delivery for our operations, because of things that we hadn't considered. Like, we had expected there to be support in what we did. Like, we are in a chain, right? Like a long chain of things. Even after we're done with the part, our customer still has to take it, do their stuff to it before it even gets integrated into their system. So we held back like key things happening in America and in this neighborhood. So if I delivered a late part to anybody, I apologize. This is so much bigger, so much bigger than us. And so we're considering, like, do we go into refinement operations? Do we go into mining operations? And there's just too much to do. Like, it doesn't work for us. So, we weren't getting banned, but we've delivered. It's taken us over 8 months to deliver some parts, and that's been incredibly frustrating. And I appreciate the customers that, can tolerate it, but yeah, it's not what I expected at all. And it's really sucked, because from the get, we knew that the problem in this industry was that people weren't delivering parts on time. And that was one of our core tenets for the company.
Yeah. Blowing past customer delivery dates feels so bad. It is terrible.
Yeah.
And just to provide a little more color on this problem, Cameron's doing very special alloys with some elements where the market is maybe a few $100 million or $1 billion. And trying to find a mine that has that, or even adding a processing circuit to get out some of these really special elements, is extremely expensive. And it's really only China that is the state providing investment to add these circuits to other processing plants.
Yeah, like hafnium is a really good example. High purity hafnium is
in mineral sands at a tiny, tiny proportion.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
Thankfully not as dramatic as a lot of these. But for context, we build technology to help military systems work together better. And we end up working with a lot of very cutting edge and next generation systems that may not be to to the reliability that we would like. We had a live demo scheduled in front of a very large audience of senior military members, where we were going to be operating a swarm of UAVs and some other things from across the country. And little did we know, the company that we were working with that builds the UAVs, which is not
Not Neros.
not Neros,
For the record.
happened to switch to a new propeller supplier a couple weeks before we acquired those drones. Well, we were out there testing a week or so before. We had a drone fall out of the sky. They tried to blame it on us. About a couple days later, we were out redoing that test. We had another drone fall out of the sky. They tried to blame it on us. We had one more drone left for this demo. The night before the demo, the last drone fell out of the sky. And we told the company, this is clearly not our fault. But anyways, ended up not being able to run the live demo in front of a very large audience of senior military members, which was a real bummer. But we're doing okay. And, we're able to grow and scale. But I think it's just, I think to Cam's point, right, the supply chain and the reason they switched to this propeller is not because of they are bad engineers. It was actually the best propeller that was they could acquire that was not from China. They were switching. It was one of the last components they were switching that was still Chinese made, and they switched to some European vendor, and basically every one of these propellers had a design flaw in it, where after a couple dozen hours of flight, it would just snap. It would be the repeated sort of motion of the propeller would cause it to fatigue and break. And I think to Cam's point, right, like there's a supply chain issue across a lot of the industry that is much deeper than people realize. Right, it's not just big fighter jets and those sorts of things, right? It applies all the way down the stack to relatively small drones and everything in between. But that was a night where I did not sleep well, but here we are.
Yeah, I think one of the most stressful periods of Neros and probably of my life, just the continued stress, continued pain, was at the beginning of this year. And it was really because we kind of thought we could deliver on a new version of a product. It was really just a new product, from the ground up, but kind of a new version, much, much faster than we ended up being able to. And there was sort of a few factors that made that so painful. One was slipping on customer delivery dates. And I think one of the most important values that I want to instill into my company as we grow is doing what you say. And I've seen a lot of companies in the defense space and in the drone space that just don't follow that and think it's okay to kind of make false promises and not deliver. And up until this point,
it's actually the norm in the defense.
Yeah, it is the norm, which is very, very sad.
It's sad to the point where sometimes if you promise the actual deadline, you end up overbidding the next guy who's just ridiculously underbidding the deadline. Yeah. And so you look bad by kind of being honest. So it's actually in some sense encouraged to maybe,
liar's chess.
Yeah, it's astonishingly bad.
Yeah. And so kind of up until this point, I mean, we hadn't been shipping a huge volume of stuff, but generally we'd, made our deadlines and made things happen for our customers. And then we had this kind of 2-month period where we just did not get the thing done because it was significantly more complex than we'd originally kind of mapped, and the engineering resources didn't line up in the way we thought. And there's a lot of reasons and a lot of lessons learned from that, and we're thankfully much, much better because of it, and much better at the planning around this type of stuff now. But for those 2 months, I was not doing the normal things that I do as the CEO of a startup. I was basically just working on the hardware, which is honestly in this case kind of a bad sign. I mean, I love doing it, but this was, I mean, 18-hour days just hoping something would work, trying different things, and then going to bed just completely exhausted and just feeling like it's this like such a draining feeling where you can't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. And you know, I think a lot of companies have gone through periods like this for longer, and we're very lucky to have gotten past it relatively quickly, and in most of the cases like shipped something to the customers when they like really needed it. But that is, I think that is one of the like periods of Neros where I don't look back on proudly. There's a lot that I do look back on proudly, and that's not one of them. But we did learn an incredible amount from it, and now being able to deliver on time and just not make any promises that we can't meet is it's held extremely highly at the company.
Well, and congrats, like getting through that. That was at the same time that like your appendix was exploding or something, right?
Oh yeah, this was also stacked on top of my my kidney would cause me severe pain multiple times a week, and actually now looking back just drain like 30% of my energy total, and I didn't really know what was going on because it took a very long time for doctors to figure it out. And I got surgery in May, and I felt so much better since. Like I think my total output is massively increased, but it was like I would also have to leave those sessions of debugging and trying to figure out the next step, and leave the team because I was just in so much pain or just completely out of energy.
Yeah. Well, so thug, well done. But then that gets to another point. You guys talking about how many a company in defense promise capability and fail to deliver on it. I think to reference the point in the conversation earlier where we were saying like, well, you know, Gundo certainly isn't just like the party bus, and it's not a bunch of pre-seed companies with vision and no hardware to speak of anymore. It's much more material. Like we're deployed to customers throughout the United States and world. But I think that part of the like cross that we bear, so to speak, is that until we're all running Leviathans, right? Like until these companies are unambiguously radically successful, until we've proven that our business model and technology is like a smashing success and eventually will comprise some sort of Zaibatsu that is worth many billions of dollars, if not more. Like we do have this responsibility. I think about this all the time. I don't know if you guys do. Maybe it's particularly potent given that cloud seeding has been scrutinized so heavily in the past, but we do bear this responsibility to make our company successful, not just for our own fiduciary responsibility's sake, but for the sake of reindustrialization and inspiring the next generation. And should any one of us, let alone most of us or the Gundo project writ large, fail, it will be a data point against doing real things into the future indefinitely, right? Like, we not only cannot fail for the sake of our own individual missions, for the sake of like the promises that we've made to our investors that want great outcomes, and for the sake of our employees that have slaved away for the sake of like their equity upside, but also because should we fail, so too will the nation to some extent, because it has been ripped of some inspiration or hope that a bunch of individuals could just decide to do things. I think about that often.
Very true. And something I consider occasionally, but I think we should all consider more, because it is so, I mean, it's so important that we win here. And it goes back to the point of like the people sitting at this table represent most of the categories that are so important to the country, but are also very in the spotlight. And so if we're the ones to fail, I think it's extra bad.
All in.
Gonna
do a little Phil Ehrenstein betting maneuver and go all in on this hand.
We're gonna win.
What I want to know is how do you keep pushing on the gas, and how have you individually, like these are such different companies, how do you keep pushing on the gas as things start scaling up and you're deciding where to send employees or what to focus on or anything else? How do you decide?
I mean, I think I could speak to this from kind of a personal perspective and a company perspective. Personally, I think, like I found as a founder, figuring out how to be sustainable is really important. And I think most of us here dedicate like the vast majority of our time to our companies, but you have to figure out the like little things that keep you sane. And in the painful periods that I've talked about, that's also where the sort of like basic stuff slips, not going to the gym, not eating properly, and it really just like digs you into a worse hole. So for me, like being able to keep the gas on is actually about finding like a slightly more sustainable pace, and what keeps it sustainable. But from a company perspective, I think we've gotten much better at deciding what really matters and thinking about the like slightly longer term goals. We definitely have had the problem where we're just fighting exactly what's in front of our face, and we're very like schizophrenic and just kind of change direction on a dime. And I think we've gotten much better at looking at like, a 6-month time horizon, a year time horizon, a multi-year time horizon, and thinking about what matters. And for like in 2025, it's the first time that since the beginning of the year, Neurus has worked towards basically a singular goal. I mean, there's always other ones in the background, but just consistently work towards that. And the engineering team has like known what they're going towards, known generally what they're working on. And the plans never survive battle, but they have to shift. But for us, it's been like, actually, if you stop being like so intense and misdirected in the moment, you get better results over a longer period of time. And that's just like a learning after doing this for 2 years.
It's interesting you say that. I'm under no pretensions that like I'm working 20 hours a day or anything like that, right? But I still feel pretty like potent guilt for any time spent either with my loved ones or otherwise, instead of the company. And so like those outlets, I think, when Gundo first started or Rainmaker first started, there was this sort of mocking like, oh, they're a bunch of meathead gym bros. Like none of us really work out that much anymore, right? I find it hard to do so. That's awesome. You're yoked. But personally for me, like, yes, there's some moments like this even right now that's very meaningful. But like the thing, Jensen Huang like talked about this, like certain kinds of work are very relaxing. Like when you have a specific goal that you've been working towards for a long time with like a very tractable solution that is contingent just on your execution, actually perhaps opposite, I find that a little bit more wearing than the curious serendipitous opportunity that arises. And now the failure case there is that you're more liable to distraction, right? But like if there's an opportunity for me to jump on a plane to go anywhere to stand up a new, not line of business, but new like contract in a different region, or to make some very particular executive hire or scientific hire, if there's like a novel research paper that comes out of some lab that might inform over the next 6 months the tech stack that we use, like that is the sort of relaxing, fulfilling work that I think probably helps me keep my foot on the gas. Like that is what is inspiring so that I can get through more of the rote like email trenches. And to Zane's point, I think off cam earlier, maybe that's like an exemplification of how radically different actually some of us are.
To be clear, I don't love emails. That is draining.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's like the most hyperbolic example,
Yeah.
right? But you know how you're saying, like, do you feel more oriented and fulfilled from working towards a specific goal?
Yeah, generally. I get what you're saying though. Like I love that startups keep things constantly changing and constantly interesting. And I think it's the novelty might be the wrong word, but the like jumping on a plane last minute to go halfway across the globe to just like address something as fast as possible is very satisfying and fun. And I do find that refreshing on occasion. I think what is not energizing for the entire company, at least for us, is if that leads to constant change in direction for what everyone's working on. I think personally, I love doing different things. I love kind of going on the side quests as needed. And I love actually like getting very hands-on with what the like company is building, whether that's the hardware or like the process that we're creating. And I love the variety of startups, but I think it's you start to wear people out if you're like pulling them in a bunch of different directions.
Totally. And I think actually it's another point about what's different in Gundo now versus 2 years ago. Perhaps exactly that which made us successful early on, that sort of dynamism and rapidity with which we could change direction and work, does not work when you have even maybe as many as 10, let alone like 50 plus employees. That requires more procedure, direction, long-term planning, these kinds of things. That's been a big change in the last 6 months for us.
Yep.
I think what I find motivating is staying close with our customers. I grew up around mining, and so I'm deeply passionate about it, and I'm always learning more about the industry and meeting more people that we are helping solve problems for. And I am trying to pass that passion on to the team, and many of them have taken to it. We have guys, some of which are from the mining industry, many of whom are not, but they're passionate about hydraulics or building big machines. And we show them, well, here's this big hydraulic machine we're building, and they get really excited about it. And also introduce them to this guy whose friend died on one of these rigs in all sorts of awful ways. And you're like, okay, we can cause some serious impact here with just a few years of R&D. That is, that's motivating.
All right, so Ted and I both gave pick-me answers. What about you, Zane and Cameron?
I think I would jump in on Soren's, that I've made the mistake in the past of driving myself into the ground, and not realizing it way too late, like literally months too late, where I've been not eating, not sleeping, not exercising properly, and just in hindsight making just the most god-awful decisions. Honestly, I'm just like thinking, why would I do that? And I think I definitely came to realize that as the company grows, I just need to do a better job taking care of myself for the company. Actually going to see a doctor when not saying, hey, it'll pass, and keep your head down. It actually does make a big difference, right? And I think if you grow the company correctly, you're building. You've hired people that are way smarter than you and way better than you at every different part of the company, right? If you touch that part of the company, you will be slowing the company down. And so you kind of have to remove yourself as much as possible continuously from different parts of the company. And your job becomes helping the company scale, not in the next month or two, but 6 months, 12 months down the line. And that is just a different type of thinking, different type of activity. And I often find myself falling into the trap of, writing a proposal or going out in the field or fixing a bug in software. And it's just kind of my instinct just to dive into that. And I've really had to pull myself back from doing that more recently. Because I will literally slow the team down in the process.
You ever hear Jeff Bezos talk about puttering? You ever I'm sure that
8 a.m. you're puttering around, watching or reading the newspaper.
Yeah.
Drinking coffee.
See, this is
every
why
single day I will go on a walk around lunchtime. It's like a half an hour walk around the block in front of my office, around the corner, and back.
I know that route well.
I see this guy on that route
Are you
many
guys
times.
neighbors now?
Without headphones, without music, just kind of without anything, just going for a walk. And it's during those times that I find that the most productive time in the entire day, of like 30 minutes of just going for a quick little walk in the sunshine. that it can feel sort of self-indulgent at times. It's like, why am I not on my desk, pounding away, heads down? But that's where I think a lot of the real insights happen, especially when you do it regularly, and it just becomes a part of your day. And that's something I highly encourage of kind of everyone here to spend some time just kind of blocked off, unstructured time that you're not interrupted at is really important for a lot of those longer term things that at the end of the day, that's in the long tail, that's what actually matters.
The motivation that I have is, when you peel back all the layers, something that's existential. Like I'm quite worried. I'm quite worried that America is very not ready. Yeah, I'm worried that in not so long of a time, the national security of the country will be questioned, and we will not be in the position of power that we think we are in now because we bet on the wrong things. And that is coupled with the idea that, and I think you've said this before, Augustus, like there is no cavalry. There is nobody coming. It is just us and our friends and the people who care. There is no invisible force that cares inside of the country that's going to come in and save us. And I think that's a pretty hard thought to believe deeply and slack off with. And that's been an obsessive thing that has had to be balanced with all of these, semantic learnings that come from burning yourself. I think it's also the reason why it's so important to have a group of people that can share those things with you. Because in my whole life, I'd always thought that you just have to work harder. And I had not met other people who had worked just as hard or even harder than me with the same level of obsession. And so it had been hard to not feel guilty for spending time in over the weekends and taking time to think and reflect and ultimately do more with a bit less. And that's a community thing. I don't think that's something you can learn by yourself in a short matter of time. And I think there have been like a few life mentors of mine that have been a little surprised with how early these later in life lessons have come for us. And I think it's because there's this collective of folks that go through, albeit having different businesses, like a very similar set of pressures. And so the struggles that we have are real among all of us. And we can learn through all of those together because we respect each other and because we motivate each other. So I'm both pushed by the existential threats that I think are real and will manifest soon, and mentored by the peers inside of this neighborhood that are feeling the same way, but experienced and doing a marathon, not a sprint.
So two thoughts there. One's a question, I guess. Yeah, like to anybody that does listen to this, that's like maybe a kid that feels relatively without company or peerless because they do have some grand ambition or does want to work extraordinarily hard or is obsessive about some particular domain. Like Gundo's here for you guys. Everybody here is like that, and
And to be clear, Gundo is a lot more than this table. There's a lot of companies that are here that might not be as loud on Twitter, but are just as serious and just as dedicated to the mission as we are across space, across manufacturing, across materials and everything else. And so I want to be clear that El Segundo is actually a much larger community than people seem to realize.
Yeah, there are probably over 1,000 people here now.
Yeah. I mean, you could vehemently disagree with everyone that's sitting at this table and still probably find
A community.
an extraordinary company in El Segundo that you would mesh with and find community in.
And that segues into my question. Stir in the pot a little bit. Cameron, you said like you're worried that America may not be ready to meet the challenge that arises in the coming years, that America may not be able to maintain its national security. Why does that matter? Like, why do we care about that? And like, listen, I'm a patriot. I love our country too, but why? You know, like what? And this points to one of Zane's previous points. Like the delta between the ethos of every founder and employee, I think even in Gundo is pretty radical. The thing that binds us, I think, is love for our nation, and it is love for like a more abundant and material and grandiose future. But like, why fight for America? And I'm curious for all of you guys.
So I mentioned this on a prior conversation with Ty, but I spent a lot of my life going back and forth with China, and at one point I made the conclusion that I wanted to live in China. I'm an industrialist. I want to see the community around me growing, and from 8 years old onward, my trips to China for my father, who was offshoring there for his electronics business, impressed me every time. I would go and see cities the size of Los Angeles and New York be constructed between my year-long trips, at a rate that I had never seen before. And I remember this very distinct moment. I was on a bullet train from Shenzhen to Xiamen, and I'd thought about how I learned in school that California spent billions of dollars and laid, just a few miles of track, and had been a huge political embarrassment to even in some ways democracy as a whole, everyone trying to vote for things. And I was sitting on this incredible smooth bullet train, nearing speeds of 200 miles an hour. And I thought, like, why? Like, what is this, just propaganda? Like, did I just grow up in a country of propaganda? And then we had gone through a tunnel, and I started to see jars next to the train as we were flying by. And I asked the translator I was with, what are those? He's like, oh, those are just the bones. We're going through a cemetery. And I realized that what they'd done is chosen 2 points and cut through everything and did everything that was necessary to get it done. And it was a collectivist society. And I was kind of cool with that when I first thought about it. Okay, I understand, but we move forward. And then I went to the factory that I was making products in, and this was before this story became public and anyone had known from a third party, but I saw it firsthand. They were making products for us, and I looked out the window and I saw nets. I was like, why are there birds outside? Like, what? Why are there nets? And it's like, that's because, this is a window outside of the bedroom of our employees, which are directly across the hall of their factory station, and that's for employee safety. And then there was this moment that happened where I had realized what I believed the human spirit was, because I grew up in a country that valued the human spirit on a basis of individuality. And in that moment, I realized that this country made me free to take the agency that I wanted to make my life become whatever it wanted to be. And I could do it. And it was this old-fashioned sense that, frankly, we don't hear as folks in our generation anymore of the American dream. I in that moment in China found the American dream. And since then, I realized that the difference that I saw between China exceptionalism and American decline was temporary. And we had the ability to take the fundamentals that our founding fathers instilled into our country and run with them. And I always think, what was America like? What was America like in the 60s, 70s, and 80s when we were doing the impossible? We were building the SR-71 and the F-117. Must have been a pretty freaking crazy place. And I think there there's a path to that. I think it's a few crazy mad lads going pretty hard on some important problems to get us back there. But we can take the whole country back there, and our country can begin to feel the way again that lifted humanity to a place that has never been before. That's the country that I want to be a part of. That's the country that I want to put a moon base up, to put a Mars base up. And if we don't feel that way very soon, it will not be us. That's for certain.
So I think I have interesting perspective on this question of, why give a shit, right? Why do we care that China doesn't take over the world? I mean, they sure can build great, beautiful cities. They can build a lot of hardware real cheap. Why care? From when I was born to the age of 21, I spent 11 years of my life outside of the United States, living all over the world. And so I got to see a different perspective on what America was. I think I grew up very American. I was in very American communities, even when I was living abroad. But I got to see the rest of the world's perspective on America. And of course, America, there's a bit of a caricature for sure, right? There's the kind of big, dumb American kind of moving around. But I think when it comes down to it, people can laugh at Americans in America, and there's plenty to laugh at. But America is that place that they want their kids to grow up in. And the question is why, right? Why do you want your kid to grow up, right? And people in Europe live plenty nice lives. They have 300 days of vacation a year, whatever it is, right?
I think it's 360 in France.
Something like that. And 5 days
Those
of
5
sick
days
day.
must be tough, man.
But the thing is, they want their kids to grow up to be in the U.S., right? And the question is, why is that? And I think what the U.S. represents, and I think, we're seeing another generation really take this torch, is a world of sort of fearless builders that have sort of self-selected for in the craziest parts of the communities across the world, that the people that were outcasts, the people that were misfits, they went to the U.S. and they started their companies, and they moved west, and even California is even the misfits of the misfits that couldn't fit in on the East Coast, right? And moved out to California to dig for gold and set up railroads and create a colony of a colony. And it's a story that I think resonates among the most inspired people around the world. And that is a community that, I feel very lucky to be born an American citizen, to be able to build and contribute in a small way into this country. But I think it's what America represents that is particularly unique, and there is no other country in the world. And I think, you look back, say 500 years, most people would bet against the United States, right? Who are these people who are going to flee their countries, move to a random spit of land that, what the hell do they have? And not just build a country, build the most powerful country by a wide margin in nearly every industry the world has ever seen in a matter of a couple hundred years. And that is a wildly inspiring story. And I think the truth is we're still very early in that story if we continue to build and we continue to invest in that future. And it's up to us, right? It's up to the next generation to make that happen. It's not it's not destiny unless we make it. And it's that story, that narrative of what it is to be an American that is I think what matters at the end of the day.
I think to add to that, there's two things that have always felt inherent to me, and I have a hard time explaining kind of beyond why they are inherent to me. But one is just a love for technology. Growing up, and not in the tech industry way, but growing up, the only thing I wanted to spend my time thinking about, aside from running around outside in the mountains in Alaska, was what are the coolest technologies that I can try to understand, sketch out on a piece of paper, think about what they might look like in the future. And I think I realized that technology moves humanity forward, and it allows humanity to do things that our ancestors would have like never even dreamed about. And when you look at the majority of outsized outcomes in technology over the past few hundred years, where we've kind of hit the sharp curve of the hockey stick, the majority of those have come from America. And I think it's because America allows for outsized outcomes, and it allows for people to take absolutely crazy bets. And that goes into my second point for myself personally, which is I feel like I've never been okay feeling like I'm doing something that is like mainstream or average. And I don't think this is necessarily healthy. Like, I think a lot of people can be happier because they are fine having a quote normal job. But for me, there's just been some like aversion to being quote normal. And I think America is a place where you can actually pursue not being normal and having a massively positive outcome. And there are communities of people across America who encourage that. And we've seen it be successful enough times where it's like, it is something you can pursue. So for me, I think there are a lot of countries where like you have smaller examples of this. And I think it's not, my perspective is not like America is the only place you can build great things, or that America is the only great country in the world. I think we have many incredible allies, and we should actually value them more than we do in some cases right now. But it is the place for builders, and is the place for people who want to have outsized outcomes across all of humanity. And that's what it's always stood for.
The country of building something new from the very founding. The founding fathers were doing something different, and we had that pioneering spirit before 1776, and then all through the 1800s as we expanded west to California, and in the 1900s we have it through space age, and now the internet revolution, and now we're doing that across many areas here. It's really that pioneering spirit to me, both in terms of kind of physical expansion, we're going to go to the moon and Mars and beyond, but then also in terms of new technology we build that is built into America's DNA, and that's what makes us unique.
Yep. And I think also for me, growing up, I saw a pretty wide range of like political opinions, and sometimes those political opinions swaying so far into actually like disliking or hating America for people who live in America. Which at some point, like very early in my life, I think I almost got like sucked down that rabbit hole of bad things are happening here, and so the country must be bad. And now looking back on that, I just don't understand how, like, if someone, and unfortunately I think there's a lot of people that fall in this bucket now, but if someone does not like America, please just leave. Like, you shouldn't be here, because the opportunity to live here is so incredible. And I think, it is always worth pointing out the things that are going wrong and trying to fix them. But if you fundamentally don't believe that America is a great place, I think there's many other countries that you can go and live in. And so for me, like that to me adds to kind of the passion of how I feel about this, because it's something I saw and now like look back on.
Though I think that idea exemplifies a lot of discourse about the difference between the American regime, right, our government, and like our nation, right? I don't know if we ought to, especially as Americans, especially in a nation where like freedom and autonomy and the individual and like our potential is so important. I don't know if we necessarily ought to feel as though our regime is beloved, right? Like, why I care about America fundamentally, like there's two reasons, maybe more. I could probably list a bunch, but like one, it's because it's ours. Like, it's because it's mine. It's because this is my home. And I think that's it's perceived as a very anachronistic belief, you know, like to be in love with, to be loyal to the place that you were born in, to love where you are from, to love your soil. It's not to say that like there aren't many people that have come here and become Americans. Like my family is not like here from the 1600s or 1700s or something, but like part of why I love this place is because it's mine, right? And it's because it's ours. And then like what it means for it to be ours beyond, again, like the regime. This notion of like Republicans and Democrats, I find pretty tiresome. Like I think that I won't put words in the mouth of all of you guys, but like we're technologists, we're futurists, we care about what the world looks like 100 years from now and hope that it's better. Like part of why I love this country is because, you know, it's not just to your point, I guess, Soren, right? Like if you hate it here, like it's not just for anybody, like it's for those that aspire to greatness, and you need freedom and autonomy of the individual to allow for that. But like, it's not just autonomy writ large, right? Like it's not autonomy for the sake of depravity. It's not autonomy for the sake of lethargy. It's autonomy and freedom to be great, right? Like if you look at the Puritans that set up the Massachusetts Bay Colony, like they came here not just because they were being persecuted and they were misfits, but because they wanted to set up utopia, right? Like if you look at the Cavaliers that came to the early American colonial South, like it's because they wanted to have great estates that they couldn't have in Europe because like they were out of space and because other people had a more hegemonic, credentialist understanding of the social hierarchy, and greatness unto itself was not valued. Teddy, you said like we were doing something new. Kind of, right? Like kind of it was something new to be free as an individual. But in some sense, it wasn't new at all. Like we based our nation's constitution and our government and our values off of Rome, right? Like I think that a lot of like nerdy autist guys on the internet can say like that they're really into Rome or something. Obviously, I think about it for a lot of particular and personal reasons, but like the United States, it's not the successor to Rome per se, but spiritually, like the notion of self-governance of the greatest people in the world for the sake of the well-being of the greatest people in the world, that is what excites me, right? It's not like a White House and a picket fence. That's noble, that's fine, but it's because here in this nation and exclusively in this nation, which is ours, we inspire people to be great. Like it's greatness, it's a more abundant future, it's a more glorious future. Like it's not perceived any longer as a virtuous thing to aspire for glory, right? Like people either consider that to be ego or consider it to be self-centered. Like if Gundo becomes what it ought to be, it ought to be remarked as a glorious chapter in American history. Yes, one where people were free and where they thought about deep things and where they expressed themselves in unique ways. I feel in my heart, I know all of you do, I know you do too, Ty. I know that everybody in El Segundo feels in their heart a desire, not just for the freedom, but the freedom to be great among their staff and their friends and their loved ones and the rest of their compatriots. Like this country is worth defending and worth building up because it is great, because we desire greatness.